Well, let me just introduce myself first. As I touched on, I'm a youth girl, born and bred. I'm still living up the road, although I did move away for a number of years. I lived in London for a number of years. I worked internationally for a few companies, and I now have a portfolio career. So I sit on the board of Principality Building Society as a non-executive. I sit on the board of the co-op, and I've actually just finished an hour's talk to co-op staff, which is what hasn't happened. I sit on the board of the Haven Port Authority. I also try and do some good and give things back. So I sit on the trustee on the Alacrity Foundation, which is the entrepreneurial charity foundation run by Sir Terry Matthews. And I also sit as a trustee on victim support. I was privileged enough to be High Sheriff a few years ago. And as part of that, victim support became very, very important and prevalent to me. So I sit as the trustee there. And if you can see my little badge there, that's the proudest thing I wear. I'm also an ambassador for Tea Haven, and it's my family's chosen charity. So I've been an ambassador, a proud ambassador for them, and a fundraiser for about 15, 20 years now. And I do what I can, including making a fool of myself for the Christmas pantomime, but those photos are not coming up today, so don't get too excited. I suppose my business background is fairly well known. The only thing anyone ever wants to talk to me about is Confused.com, and I was chief executive of Confused.com at its launch. I did that for about 6 years. But actually, before that, when I worked internationally, I did build a business that part of NCR, as part of their division. It was a £500 million business, 30,000 employees worldwide, 30 countries. So I spend most of my life on an aeroplane. Let's say nobody wants to hear about any of that stuff. They only want to hear about Confused.com, which is fine, but we're not going to talk about that today. So as part of my portfolio career, one of the things I got asked to do a couple of years ago was to chair this initiative at the top of the Dulwich Valley, and I'm very, very proud to do that. So let me give a little bit of education about the rail industry. The rail industry is about a 200-year history in the UK, makes about 36 billion annual contribution to the UK economy. It's critical to the growth of decarbonisation and net zero targets for the government. And Wales manifested to increase to 40% the number of people making journeys by public transport by 2040. That's an ambition that's mirrored across the UK. And we've all heard in the press about rail numbers, passenger numbers going down through the shock of COVID, but they're calling that a black swan event apparently, new phrase to me. So they do expect those numbers to recover at some point. So all of these factors actually gives GCRE the perfect market position and opportunity to support and accelerate some of these policy decisions aimed in rail, the UK and indeed at an international level. So I have to reiterate at this point, we're very, very proud that this project is based in rail, but it is actually an international project. And the reason for that is we start by solving the problem, right, when we set up the business. And the problem we're trying to solve here is, this came as a bit of a shock to me, but hone in, there is no fit-for-purpose dynamic testing facility in the UK that is capable of introducing a new, more environmentally friendly, carbon-free, and publicly demanded low-cost services that we need in the UK today. Both public and private sector organisations frequently use test facilities in Europe and in the USA. But that's supporting jobs in the field and building confidence outside of the UK. That's one big difference, right? So we do have some facilities in the UK, maybe, where all trains that need to be tested and certified can go. There's a facility in Melton Mowbray and in Tuxford in the Midlands. It's a linear track, very, very constrained, long waiting list for usage. Some of them are actually based in the middle of housing estates, which is not ideal. And you can imagine by testing the train, very patronising, by saying you go chuck, chuck, chuck in reverse. Right? What can you tact on that? There is a facility in Germany, but it's almost exclusively used by seamen for their trains. So most trains from the UK and indeed from Europe have to go over to check, because that is the only high-speed is available for testing. It is only for rolling stock, and the waiting list is huge. This gives us a great opportunity to solve this problem, and the need is there, clearly the need is there. More rolling stock, more UK rolling stock tested at that facility, tested in the factory than anywhere else. But again, that just doesn't work for us here in the UK, because the cost of transportation alone, let alone the complexity of getting the trains over there and getting them back, just doesn't really make any sense. And we need that money to stay in the UK economy. Innovation is always thankful, because it's either deferred, delayed, or even denied. And standards in the rail industry often remain behind innovation, rather than the more desirable approach of standard leading innovation. And when you think of projects such as HS2, Crossrail, and Powerhouse, Valley project, the need for safe and efficient testing to drive performance and cost efficiency has really never been greater. So innovation and new technology and certification is required to drive down the cost of transportation in this country and enhance the effectiveness of the railways. So you can argue that there's been lots of underinvestment for many, many years, and it's easy to criticise government, and I do that. I'm sorry. But to give some credit here, in 2019, Welsh Government convened an industry group to look at the case for taking GPR forward. It was chaired by a well-respected industry figure called Gibbs, and included representatives from Amy, Serco, Trenitalia, Rail Operations Group, CAF, and Network Rail, so all the key players. The group ultimately wrote to the UK Prime Minister at the time to set out their ambition to reduce safety. At that point in time, it was actually called PG. I think we should put that one. I like that one. We move to the next one. So let's look at the site. This is the Disney picture, if I like to call it, that anyone from this area will know. The site straddles local authorities, Powys and the Talbot Council, and at this point, I really have to give a shout out to our local authorities. Again, I know it's easy to criticise you guys, but without your support, this project wouldn't actually get to the point that it is today. Because the number of planning applications, remediation of land, and all sorts of complications with that, we have actually had a lot of support from our local authorities. Very much appreciate that. This project will deliver much needed investment to what is effectively a deprived area and hopefully stimulate indicative research and development and innovation capabilities. So rather than talk about trains, which I know it's all about trains, right? But actually it's not all about trains. The way I like to talk about this is that this is a huge laboratory. And I'll come on to a little bit more about other than trains and what we're hoping to do. So the site comprises of two distinct locations. The first is the Mount Helen site, which is the open cast mine site, which has been in operation since the late 1940s. The site finished coal extraction middle of last year. And the second main site is the site of the Old Mine Washery, if anyone knows that. Initially built to process coal from the local collieries in 1937. But that ceased processing coal earlier on this year. And there is some coal that's still stored up there. And that's continuing to be dispatched and probably will end in March next year. So if you look at the map, even though this is the Disney version, I'm still not convinced about the camping and the hot tubs, particularly, if you can see those. But what we will be building are those loops. And around those loops, we will have to build tunnels and platforms to simulate real-life train experiences, and we will be building bridges as well. So the base camp of all of this, the nerve centre, will be around the bottom of this and around Onshine. And of course, we're at the edge of the Brecon Beacon, so we can't distance that. The scale of this is hard to describe until you actually get there. So we can come to the next slide. Last week, we completed on the land, so we have bought 700 hectares of land up there, which is actually the size of Gibraltar. So we're bringing Gibraltar together. You can see some of the numbers there. So the amount of earth that we have to move, effectively we bought an open class line, right? So there's a huge chunk of earth and there's a huge hole to fill. So the amount of excavation and the amount of engineering that we have to do cannot be underestimated. So the headline quantities are there. To give you some perspective again, if we took all of that earth that we need to move to another location and we put that into an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and then you put those Olympic-sized swimming pools end to end, they will reach from Onslow to Amsterdam. So that's the amount of earthworks that we've got to shift, right? So it's a bit more than a guy with a shovel. Approximately 2/3 of the site is on common land. So again, that's a huge consideration for the common land. Moving to the next slide, again, talking about perspective here. Those loops, the outer loop is 7 kilometres, followed by the inner loop, which is a 4 kilometre loop. And if you took Hyde Park from London, you could fit it into the middle of those loops. So you can see the size of the prize that we're doing here. Again, not to be underestimated. So one of the things that we did was have public consultation. It was very important for us that we actually had a follow-up consultation last night, which I was unable to attend. But when we did the initial one, we had 450 people from the local community attending face-to-face meetings with members of the project team. We had over 70 responsible coming. The majority of people, I have to say, were very, very supportive of this initiative. There was one or two very funny stories about worrying about the washing on the land. People would point out that they were moving next to an open cast line for 50 years. I'm not sure there's too much to worry about, and you're always going to get one or two queries, right? But the majority were very, very supportive of this project. But the key issues that came out, key concerns, quite right so, about noise, vibration, air quality, light pollution, and all of these have been considered and were addressed in planning applications that I'm pleased to get on through. Common land again, and public rights of way were issues that were concerned by the locals, and again, that's been the other thing that came out of the consultation very clearly was about offsetting. So we're working with the local authorities ecology teams that will identify which parts of the site are suitable for afforestation, and the land will be set aside for planting native woodland, and hopefully that will go some way, if not all the way, to offsetting some of the carbon that we're going to have to use in the building. We can go to the next slide, please. So going back to the two test groups for a second, they will both be electrified at 25 kilowatts. One will be the 7 kilometre outer loop, which is a high-speed rolling style test track designed to go up to speeds of 110 miles an hour. That's a requirement of HS2, so they become a customer of ours. Without that facility, we can be able to do the work. The inner loop is a 4 kilometre loop, and again designed for 40 mile an hour testing and running. This will primarily be for infrastructure testing and heavy passenger and freight trains, including the Class 360. That means nothing to you, but I'm sure it means something to somebody who loves trains. But that will run for about 16 hours a day, 5 days a week. So as I said, this is more than just a rail facility. 3 primary business routes are the rolling stock testing, the infrastructure testing that we talked about, and rail infrastructure accounts for about 90% of capital spending in rail today. But this will be the world's only dedicated high tonnage infrastructure test facility, other than the one in Colorado in the USA. The other core business that we would have, and you can see from the towards the bottom right-hand corner there, on the washroom site of on-time, would be storage and maintenance. So that's a key revenue driver for this project. And we will provide rented and siding storage for up to 100 vehicles, trains, as a starting point. That will generate revenues in advance of the main test facility and help us to become operational sooner rather than later. The market for storage, and who knew, I'm learning about trains all the time, who knew trains have to protect all the time? So the rate for warm storage is £45 per vehicle per day. And we're proposing ultimately constructing facilities up to 350 vehicles in warm storage and extending that hopefully to 450 vehicles subject to demand later on. Again, this has been an education for me at the start of the rail industry. It's not really my background, but I'm learning all the time. And one of the things I'm learning about is one of the issues of integration. So the engineers are telling me that all of the component pieces, the train, the tracks, the signalling, they're all independently testified and certified. But they're never really all put together and tested, which kind of doesn't make any sense. So integration testing is the first thing that is really important to have, and that's something that we can claim to have under USP. But overruns are often caused by difficulties associated with bringing all these things together, and they are very, very complex. You've got new trains, old trains, you've got new power systems, you've got new signaling and old signaling. Any of you that use a train like I do regularly come into London will know about the telecommunications challenges on these trains and the Wi-Fi. You've got new and existing tracks, you've got staff training, etc. So you bring all of these things together and they all need to be integrated and tested all at the same time. So prior to GCRE, there was no solution for this other than inadequate test facilities or even computer simulation. And initially our focus will be on HS2, which is a £100 billion project over 10 years, being funded by Westminster Government. Digital signalling, 35 billion being spent on that over the next 30 years. And rail telecommunications, who knows how much they're spending on that. 65% of the 40,000 signals in the UK today need to be renewed in the next 15 years, and all have to be tested and certified. The European telco market for transportation is worth £1.4 billion per annum. So you can see that there's big money slushing around on this stuff, right? And they're not really having the test facilities that they really need. There's also plans for testing 5G on rail platforms and gateways on the trains as well. This is a hard to believe fact, but it's true. UK suppliers have recently had to use railways in India to prove their equipment works. So talking about energy, talking about this being a laboratory with more than just about transport, energy will be provided to GCRE customers by GCRE. This is one of the big challenges that we've got on the site. There's a target of net zero energy operations. We're still hopeful that we can achieve that or close to it as possible. But the national grid connectivity poses a huge risk to this project. It is probably one of the biggest headaches I've got on my mind. Neither national grid or Western power distribution, and both primary grids neither of them can say for certainty that we can meet our requirements right now. The lower upfront cost solution in Western Power may not be able to meet our technical requirements, and National Grid's timescales would not see the site energised until several years after construction. We had a meeting with National Grid, and I was a little astounded to hear them say that their lead time for providing us with a substation that we need around for 10 years. So even if we build all the wind farms and solar farms in the world, we can't connect to the grid, which doesn't seem to make any sense. So we're looking at alternative solutions, right? One of the things we're very good at is we're creating business. So we're looking at locally generated and or on-site generation and or private value connection with wind farms and solar farms. There are quite a few around the area. And anyone who lives up that way or is getting to live that way will know we're not sure of wind up there, especially at the top. So wind farms and solar are an option for us. The site is large enough to be able to accommodate a 14 megawatt solar farm. Nearby existing solar farms can also give us a direct connection to over 30 megawatts of two solar and wind. And the peak demand that we anticipate that we will need for those trains go round and round and round is about 20 to 50 megawatts. So we should be able to come up with a very creative solution to a big problem. But that doesn't solve the fact that, it's still astounding to think that National Grid put in 10 years. Oh, and I've got to tell you, we also want 40 million pound upfront. So you can imagine how that conversation went. But the idea is that we can, when we're able to generate our own power, that we can sell and excess back to national grid. Railways and road sectors are investing heavily in hydrogen and other power sources, but the infrastructure to transport, manage and distribute hydrogen presents its own problems. So again, we'll be able to offer test facilities to companies who want to look at energy solutions around hydrogen, cryogenic, etc. Moving on to the slide. So it's a great day at work, isn't it, when you go home and say, what did you do today, darling? Well, I bought some trains today. So that's one I don't think I'll ever repeat in my life. So things are kind of moving on, and there are ancillary business lines that we are getting exploited. So it amazes me again, almost on a weekly basis, we're getting phone calls from people that we never anticipated. So we talked about rail, and we talked about energy, and we talked about telecommunication. But when you get phone calls about training and education, and that's really, really important to me. The driver training and specialist role certification, can we come up and can we have space on your site to do that? Property, commercial and industrial units, we're going to need a hotel to house a lot of people that are going to be using it. We wanted to also be a showcase for exhibitions and outdoor concerting. So that's possible using that land for why we will utilise as much as possible. And automotive as well, we've had many inquiries from the automotive sector about testing on site. Then we get other opportunities. You get random phone calls, right? There's a guy who ran up and said, I've invented some acoustic fencing. Can I please have some kilometres of rail track where I can put this acoustic fencing up to test whether it works or not? Orange trains, I can put that on the bottom there. The orange train march, thinking about it, is going to revolutionise how trains are kept clean, apparently, because their footprint is only 2 meters by 1 metre, and the water is recycled and reused, and there's no chemicals there. We had a phone call from a company who wanted to test overhead composite gantries rather than the traditional material, because they're less cost, easier to construct. So these additional opportunities have not been baked into the financial model. We just based our financial plan on the basic kind of rail infrastructure. And I guess what we're sitting out there going, right, tell me what the numbers are, right? How will the people in the audience tell me the numbers? So let me share some of them with you. Some of the business lines that I've talked about are better involved than others, and they're having a great impact on the financial model. But if we look at the core business lines that I talked about, then we believe that they are sufficient enough to deliver a sustainable business. And then obviously we need additional ancillary lines that just augment the business plan. So the most likely, we've modelled it because how to achieve the disruptive model, and nobody's really doing it. And you can't go check to the back of them and ask them their business model. People are quite different. You can't go to America and ask them what we do. But they wouldn't share too much of their commercial with it. So we anticipate that the most likely revenue forecast will generate an EBITDA around 20 to 40 million pounds per annum. However, the financial model that underpins this business case reflects the financial challenge of significant upfront capital investment and committed future revenues. Right? So revenues can not yet be certain because of what I've just said. It's been a new disruptor model. But the potential for cost overrun on infrastructure is phenomenal. Like many of you, GCO has identified an increase in costs compared to the original assumptions. We were very fortunate to have money from Welsh Government and from Westminster, and that 90 million, that initial 90 million funding was sitting in the bank, and every day I'm watching it depreciate because of the economic climate that we're in. The government is doing what it should be doing. Government funded it to de-risk the project so that we can look at bringing in private investment. So the financial model to get this up and running was there was a £20 million grant from Gaze from Westminster, a £15 million equity investment from Welsh Government, There's a further 10 million committed to an R&D facility, which is coming from a consortium of 18 universities from the UK that are going to fill up with PhD students and do other things. And then it's also supported, hopefully, with a further shareholder loan that's coming either from us or from Welsh government, or from Max Boyce. So this initial sort of 90 million figure, that will allow GCRE to raise a further 150 to 200 million pounds in equity from private investment. So what Welsh Government have done is they've set up a limited company. They recognise that by keeping this project in government, it's probably not going to happen. So they've done the right thing. We've set up a limited company, which I chair, and it's run independently of Welsh Government, although they are currently the shareholder. But very, very quickly, as we can bring private investment in, we will take that equity over. What I have been pleasantly surprised about, I anticipated it taking about 2 years from this point to really talk and get excited with private investment. But we are currently having lots and lots of meetings. So I've been very surprised how much interest has come from international pension schemes that want to look at investing, but also from trade investors, some of the big names in the trade industry. And it seems to be, ironically, easier to raise 200 million than it is to raise 2 million in this time, which is a bit rare. But the private money that will come in will allow GCRE to be de-recognised from the Welsh Government balance sheet and provide the security then for long-term leases for a range of crucial businesses and buildings that we need on site. So where to next? Well, I want to talk to you about the local legacy that is probably here, and skills of failure is very, very important to me. So the rail sector employs about 40 million people, 84% of them are male, 28% of them are over 55, so 51 years old. And there are 4,000 vacancies currently in the rail industry around the world. Many of us in business are finding that skills shortage is a real challenge for us. So an education and training facility is exactly what's needed on site. Now that's not going to be there on day one, and I'll talk you through some of the cases in a second, but it's certainly something we're totally committed to. It's trying to raise the aspiration and trying to inspire people locally to take on some of these training jobs that we're going to have. Short-term property developments will include a 100-bed hotel. We need to build a data centre. We need to build a small number of light industrial units and focus R&D training centre. Some of the more creative uses, trade shows, concerts, hosting a permanent railway exhibition that will be talked about. Working with Celtic Energy for their proposed forest lodges, so not ignoring the fact that this is in the middle of Brecon Beacons and the tourist economy is very, very important. So job creation, some of the skills that we'll be looking for are health and safety managers and training managers, reception staff, signalling, electrics, telecommunications, facilities management, security infrastructure on fences, gates, CCTV, attention, cleaning of vehicles and facilities, automotive fleet, train maintenance, controls, and the list goes on. Site safety, drainage, landscape management. So there's a variety of skills, not just engineering jobs, that we will be creating there. We can pop back to slide 5. I just want to talk you through the phases. So phase 0, which is the one that we've completed already, is getting public funding, getting the business plan, the initial master plans we completed, securing the land deal, which actually was done last week, the ground investigation works, the discharge of the planning condition, the procurement of an earthworks contractor, and establishing the company. All of that has been done, and that's set the tone hopefully for what's to follow. So phase 1 will be the earthworks and the 100-vehicle planning construction. That's going to take us about 18 months, so that's what public money is funding for us. We will achieve an income source from that storage facility, and that's the thing, the revenues that we need to cover costs. Phase 2 will be the railway construction, including the 2 loops, and that's the most technically complex part of the work. But again, the revenue generation really starts from that. And then phase 3 will be the real estate development, the maintenance sheds, the offices, the business park, the hotel, the visitor centre, and all that goes along with that. Some of that may be brought on quickly because as we've got people coming on site and these training companies renting these facilities will take 6 months at a time, and we bring people who will need accommodation. But maybe that the hotel will bring that forward. But much of these other things will have that private funding. So I'm sure some of you are sitting there as well thinking, right, how can I get a spice to this? Yeah, I'll make the human back. So let me tell you what GCRE is not. It is not a utility, and I have to read this because I'm back. It is not a utility. We're not operating a railway network that provides services to the public. So therefore, we are not bound to comply with the Utilities Contracts Regulation of 2016. As a private company with an industrial or commercial purpose, neither are we obliged to follow the contracting authority or a body governed by public law, and therefore not bound to comply with the Public Contracts Regulations of 2015. Yeah, that's not a good thing. But despite that, we recognise that, particularly in view of the nature of the funding that we've got from government and public money, that we are obliged to make sure that we voluntarily adopt a procurement procedure that's recognised in the market as being transparent, as being open and non-discriminatory, and obviously we have to retain good value. But we are committed to, even though we're looking at some tier 1 operators, we are committed that they use as much local resource as possible, that they engage local businesses as much as we possibly can. And that is a commitment I can give to you today. I can also note that there's a Meet the Buyer event that's happening on the 2nd of November in Cardiff City Hall. I'm sure shouting is the one that you know we talk about. It's because following that event is an Innovating UK launch of quite a substantial fund of money that will be given to young entrepreneurs, any sort of entrepreneurial businesses that want to get funding and to use that to get to improve their nations. So that's the reason we Cardiff. So that's the 2nd of November in Cardiff City Hall. Information is live on the Scout site. If we can go to the last one, please. Many of you have spoken to me and said, the secret in this area. Why is that? Well, Wales has been described as the land of the artist in question, right? And we've had a big project in Wales that we've publicised and got very excited about, and then they've never come to fruition. So we've purposely tried to keep it a little bit undercover until in today, and you've probably been on LinkedIn from the information about that. So around the business and government structure, Welsh Government established GCRE as a special purpose vehicle to build and to operate GCRE facilities. We needed to have that private sector mentality, that disruptive model, that entrepreneurial view, otherwise we never going to get it. So that was really important to us. And we've created a board of directors from a variety of backgrounds. I myself from this particular area, Geraint from Cardiff, and then we just appointed a couple of non-execs from across the board as well. Emphasising the fact that we're very proud of this Welsh initiative, but it is actually an international organisation. Safety, right? Because we're running this huge facility, and you can only imagine the dangers that happen with that. But this is a commercial enterprise at the end of the day. So it's not without its challenges. I've talked already about that money sitting in the bank, and I think that's appreciate the skills that we need, the goods, services, cost abilities that the moment has to run. Private funding, it's great having all these conversations, but we need to nail them down and get that money in the bank. The political environment that we're in is a challenge. Tap dancing between a Labour government in Cardiff and the Conservative government in Westminster is just not easy, and there are many of those kind of complications happening. The energy requirements that I talked about, the challenge, the scale of the engineering and the challenge of the engineering, because we can even put heavy trains on that line, is phenomenal. And that's not to mention the reptile. I forgot that to mention. But, we find that we have to spend 30 days moving units from one part of the site to another part of the site. And if we don't get it done in time, we potentially could lose 12 months. I'm not going to be thankful because I get really frustrated with that layer. So the point I want to make is the sheer scale and the complexity of this individual is not to be underestimated. And timing is everything. If we'd done this 5 years ago, without this political and economic environment, it would have been a lot easier. So the timing is not great. But what I can tell you is that we're up and running. Phase 1 is paid for. Phase 1 has been de-risked by public money. We've got massive interest from private sector to do the rest. We are very focused, we're very determined, we're very passionate, so hopefully you can tell that. We can only be good news for this region. We need to have continued support from the Welsh Council and from Powers. We need continued support from Welsh Government, continued support from Westminster and the local communities, and of course from all of you in this room. So more information is available. I've got some cards with me with some QR codes that you can scan, and there's a couple of nice little videos showing, not real trains, but the chat. So I'm happy to share those, and I'll be around for a little while having more coffee with you, Jane. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got then. But thank you very much for your patience and your listening.